Welcome to MYB Masterclass. Today we will be looking at essay writing, specifically essay writing for literary analysis. So, what is the general structure of a literary analysis essay? To begin with, you'll have your introduction, where you will present your argument and the techniques that you will be exploring. Next, you'll have your body paragraphs. Now, the amount of body paragraphs that your essay should have will vary depending on the specific assignment. It's usually between 3 and 5. And lastly, your conclusion, where you will reiterate the points that you've made throughout the essay and connect it to the real world context. So firstly, the intro. It is important that in your introduction, you briefly contextualize the work, name the author. You could provide different details that allow the reader of your essay to understand the themes that you'll be talking about. Perhaps the year it was published, what impact or legacy it has had since its publishing, major events that shaped it. For example, if a book took place in World War II, that might be relevant to the story, you could mention that. Or if it took place during the Great Depression, that is also something important that you could mention. And what is the main plot or setting? Now, you do not have to mention all of these pieces of information. It is up to you to determine which ones are the most important and which ones will help the reader of your essay to understand the points that you'll be making the most. And in your introduction, you'll also have your thesis. Now, your thesis is the argument that you're going to be making, and it is very important to have a good thesis statement. So you'll be stating what will you be proving, how does the text prove it, and try to be specific. Whilst it is not ideal to make any reference to text or specific textual quotations or citations, it is essential that you do specify what does the author achieve that allows them to show the theme that you're going to be exploring. Everything else that you write in your essay will be relating to your thesis statement, so keep that in mind as you're writing. For instance, let's look at the first example of a thesis statement. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men portrays the ways that women are oppressed. Now, this is an argument that states something about the text. However, it could be more specific. How does John Steinbeck portray the ways women are oppressed? John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men portrays the ways women are oppressed through the female character's limited gender roles. Okay, that is better. And how would it be even better? If you specify more about the things that you will explore later on in your paragraphs. John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men portrays the ways women are oppressed through the female characters' limited gender roles, their sexualization and objectification, as well as examples of victim blaming and misogyny. Whilst you do not make any reference to specific textual citations or examples, you do state the general ideas that the author conveys. For example, victim blaming, misogyny, sexualization, and objectification. Those are all things that the author will be achieving and that you'll be exploring. Those that are broader and not specific, those are the ones that you should be mentioning in your thesis statement. So if we put all of this together, how would an introduction look? Of Mice and Men is a novella written by John Steinbeck and published in 1937. The story narrates George Milton and Lenny Small as they travel across California and start working on a ranch during the Great Depression. It attempts to depict the marginalization of certain groups, women in particular, within the novella setting, a microcosm for America. More specifically, John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men portrays the ways women are oppressed through the female characters' limited gender roles, their sexualization and objectification, as well as examples of victim blaming and misogyny. Here you can see the presentation of the text, the author, the publishing year, a little description of what the book is about, its plot, and when the book takes place, a general theme it explores, and then your thesis statement. Next up is the body paragraph. Now, the body paragraph is the thick of your essay. As I mentioned before, it is not one single body paragraph. You're likely to have between 3 and 5 body paragraphs, but it depends on your assignment and the specifics of the activity. Now, the general structure of a body paragraph. You'll have your topic sentence, where you state the idea that you'll be developing. This idea should be connected to the broader argument that you're making throughout the essay, but should be a bit more specific and precise, as it is what you'll be proving with the set of evidence you choose to present in this paragraph. Next, your evidence. Now here you should be using specific quotes or segments that allow you to prove your argument. If you can, try to embed these pieces of evidence as you go writing, and then you will explain how does that piece of evidence, that word, that phrase, that segment, that technique that you have chosen to include show the idea that you've mentioned in your topic sentence. What is the connection there? Like, what does that technique or choice achieve that allows the author to do this depiction of the theme or topic that you're talking about? One piece of evidence is likely not enough. It is recommended that you include several pieces of evidence, so you will repeat the evidence and explanation to create a stronger paragraph. And lastly, your link. Here, you will connect the idea to the broader argument of your essay, and you will begin to connect it to the real world. Now, what is an example? How would this look like? What is an example of a good body paragraph? So here, we have our topic sentence. Firstly, the novella portrays the way that women are oppressed in society through their limited gender roles of female characters. That female characters perform. My apologies. So you immediately know that this paragraph will talk about limited gender roles that female characters perform. There you go. That's the specific idea that you'll be discussing. And next, the evidence. One woman often referenced is Lenny's Aunt Clara. In Lenny's dream, he sees that Clara was a little fat old woman who wore thick bullseye glasses and a huge gingham apron, which was starched clean. As Lenny imagined her speaking to him, she was frowning at him, disapprovingly at him. Next, the explanation. The imagery of Aunt Clara wearing an apron has connotations to her doing domestic work, linking her to a housewife. In addition, Aunt Clara being described as starched and clean evokes the idea of virtue. As a result, Aunt Clara is depicted as fitting traditional female roles, such as domesticity and taking care of children. Moreover, she is exemplary because of this. This visual imagery depicting her weights and glasses also challenges the idea of traditional beauty, emphasizing a softer and more maternal figure. Furthermore, her disapproving response to Lenny implies she cares as a mother, thus further characterizing her as a maternal figure. Thus, the novella represents the limited gender roles of women. More specifically, Aunt Clara conforms to traditional and limiting ideas of femininity as a domestic and maternal figure. Now, there you have your explanation, your choices. You have imagery, the depiction of her doing domestic work, the visuals of her in an apron, of her caring, and you see how you talk about how the author's choices have built to this portrayal of Aunt Clara that connects to the theme that the topic sentence expressed, that of limited gender roles. Next piece of evidence. Conversely, in Curly's wife's first appearance in the novella, she is described as having full rouged lips and white spaced eyes that were heavily made up. Moreover, her fingernails were red. Her hair hung in little rolled clusters like sausages, and she wore a cotton hose dress and red mules. The repetition of the color red in her appearance has connotations to sexuality, as the color red is associated with lust. As a result, Curly's wife's sexuality is emphasized as being her most important characteristic. Furthermore, the imagery of Curly's wife wearing a lot of makeup and having hair that was cared for implies that she is someone who cares about her appearance. Subsequently, she is seen as a symbol for beauty and fits into the limiting stereotypes of women putting effort to look good for men. Hence, women in the novella are only portrayed through the lenses of typical gender roles for women, like Curly's wife needing to look attractive for the gaze of men. This limits women as their performance is something which should serve men. So there you have your link and your explanation. Lastly, your conclusion. In your conclusion, you're going to reiterate your thesis, different wording, highlight the main points that you've made, and connect to the real world. That last bit is very important. That's the objective of your conclusion, to connect it to the real world. For example, in conclusion, through the limited gender roles women have, the sexualization and objectification of women, and through the examples of victim blaming and misogyny, the novella is able to depict the oppression of women in society. Specifically, the novella portrays a limited spectrum of gender roles, such as the maternal and domestic Aunt Clara, or the beautiful and seductive Curly's wife. However, the novel portrays the former as being the performance women should aspire to, further limiting them. In addition, women are objectified, often as sexual objects or wives, as is the case with Curly's wife and the prostitutes in Susie's place. Finally, Women who do challenge traditional gender roles, like Curly's wife, are met with misogyny, policed by men to conform to classical roles. Additionally, she is blamed for her own death, which further displays the disempowerment of women. The issues that women face in the novella, in addition to their depiction, need to be analyzed in order to be addressed with conscious efforts to improve the treatment of women within society. That last sentence connects it to the real world, and it emphasizes the critique or the portrayal that the author is making and how it connects to the real life context. Now here, as you can see, there's the mentioning of ideas that were not explored in the body paragraph that we looked at as our example, but there are definitely material for other body paragraphs. Thank you for watching. Later on, we'll get into the specifics of how to write a persuasive essay and what are literary techniques, as well as other resources that will help you improve your writing skills.